this thing was supposed to last not more than a week. And when sat down and reviewed, military historians go around and around and around about Market Garden. Even President Eisenhower will be asked about it later on. And in hindsight, it's easy to say that was the worst idea of all time. I really can't believe they actually tried it. But in 1944, in the early fall, it seemed like a pretty good roll of the dice simply because of the supply crisis. You don't have enough supplies to get to all three armies. This one has got the shortest distance. Let's give it a shot. The other thing that was going on was a lot of heavy political pressure being asserted to the Allied Army because of the V-1 rockets being fired over from the Netherlands, Belgium, and France, targeting Antwerp in Belgium, but London and Manchester and Portsmouth over in England. The V-1 was like a pulse jet. It was like a rah, 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 rah. It was like an old, I guess, like lawnmower when you're straining with heavy wet grass. People called it a buzz bomb. It was horribly inaccurate. It was more of a weapon of intimidation and mass destruction. You aimed it at London, but it might go, you never really knew where it was going to go. 2,400 had been launched at London. Now only 800 hit. It's only a third, but that third did a tremendous amount of damage to the city of London. This is where the Londoners were forced underground. The Blitz had been over, the Battle of Britain, but kids are out in the countryside, and you never knew when and where. You would hear it, and you would stop and look and hope that you saw it, because if you saw it, you knew it wasn't going to land on you. While this is happening, Patton and the Allied Army are racing across southern France. It's the Falaise Gap, what we covered last week. But right near the end, a new rocket comes online, the vaunted V-2. And the V-2 was a ballistic missile. This is an old V-1. Guys are carrying it out on a wagon, and it's got its motor on the back. It was a formidable weapon. It was a high explosive, but it was very inaccurate. Problem with it, as you can see, we got 5, 6 guys wheeling it out. It was very hard to hit. It was very hard to hit from the air because it was such a small target. So the only way to capture the V-1 rocket was literally to overrun the launching sites with ground troops. The V-2 is even more formidable. It travels faster than the speed of sound. So you never knew, there was no warning, there was no like the buzz bomb. It was when there was an explosion. So this is terrifying the people of London, as it's just across the narrow part of the North Sea and the English Channel. So we've got to get the launch sites. While they were a little bit bigger than the V-1s, they were still mobile and very hard to hit and very easy to camouflage with the military aircraft at the time. September 8th, shortly after Patton crosses the Seine River, 900 V-2s are fired at London. Those 900 do more damage than all of the previous years of bombing combined. 6,000 London civilians are killed and just millions of dollars in property damage. So we got to go in and get the V-2s. You add that to the supply crisis, and guys were looking for the fastest cure, the biggest cure that would end World War II. Here is Antwerp, several blocks of Antwerp taken out by one V-2, and here is London. This thing's just completely and totally in shambles. The explosive power was tremendous. Not very much different from some of our ballistic missiles today. So this is brand new. Remember, 1944, no one's seeing anything like this. This is shocking. So, all right, what do? Supply crisis. Red Ball Express is doing everything they can, but it's just a trickle of the equipment needed. So Eisenhower calls a conference. Give me your best plan for ending the war. Patton says, look, you give me the gas, I got this thing over by Thanksgiving at the latest. Eisenhower says, George, what are you going to do? He goes, well, a lot of people forget no foreign soldier sets his foot inside Germany. Great War, Germans signed an armistice. They lost a lot of young men, but their towns were intact, their crops, their livestock. They don't know what the destruction of war is like. Give me the gas. I'll go through the Siegfried line. I'll blow up everything from Austria to Munich, and I guarantee they'll quit. George, I don't know if you can do that. Well, why not, Ike? Well, it'll look bad. I don't care. Blame it on me. I really don't care. But it'll end the war. You take the credit. Blame me. The war is over. All right, we'll think about it. Bernard Law Montgomery, Patton's antithesis, says, look, I got a plan. Shortest route from Paris to Berlin. I'll have the war over by October. I'll be Patton by at least a month. And when Montgomery lays out his plan, like, God, I don't think it's ever going to work. But, and Eisenhower said, if there was just one chance in 1,000 that it would work, he had to take that risk. He had no other option because of the V-1 and V-2 rocket threats. So on September 9th, Eisenhower says, okay, gas and ammunition are halted going to Bradley and Patton, 1st Army and 3rd Army. Every available resource goes to Bernard Law Montgomery. And he's going to pull off his plan in a week. When he calls people in and they go, well, when are we going to launch this? He goes, within the week. And they're like, what? He's like, yeah, I would like to launch sometime September 16th or 17th. They're like, there's no way we're going to be ready in time. He goes, yeah, you will. So get it done. And his plan is incredible. The first part is called Market. Market is a signal for the airborne paratroopers that are going to partake in this jump. American 101st, the American 82nd, and the British 1st Airborne are going to lay a carpet for the garden part, which is the infantry. And the troops chosen to do it are Montgomery's own, the Guards Armored Division, the 30th Corps. The guys that he fought around Caen with all summer. And the guy leading the Airborne is a guy named Frederick Browning. Frederick Browning is the father of British paratrooper services, like the founder of the SAS. He is the one that comes up with the red cock beret, the signal of a special forces soldier. So Frederick Browning knows his stuff. He's kind of a stodgy British gentleman, but he knows what he's doing. And he's pretty good friends with Montgomery. He's one of the few guys that Montgomery can't bully or intimidate. And Browning says right at this point, I fear we're going for a bridge too far, Monty. I think we can get a lot of this. I don't know that we can get all of this. Montgomery says, yes, we can. Don't worry about it. The infantry is going to be led by a pro-Montgomery man, a guy named Brian Horrocks. Brian Horrocks is Monty's right hand. He's been with him since North Africa. He looks at this and says, Monty, I don't know if we can do this. If everything goes perfectly, we have a chance. If this one variable goes wrong, this whole thing is sunk. And Monty says, I won't deal with pessimism, Brian. You're either on the boat or you're off. All right, I got you. The plan calls for Horrocks to lead the 30th Corps, Guards Armored Division, 63 miles in a sprint from the Belgian-Dutch border in a northeast arc up through the Netherlands to come out over the Rhine River. If they do that in this big bridge in the little town of Arnhem, they are behind the Siegfried line. So if you vision my wooden table as the German defenses, if everything that Montgomery wants to happen happens, his tanks will bypass all of that, be into Germany on a flat plain running right for Berlin. There's no reason to fight through not only the man-made defenses, but the Ardennes and the Argonne forest to the south. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of lives. If we can get through this flat part of Europe, we've got this thing won. We can head to Berlin. We'll be behind the Germans, and we'll be in front of the Russians. So if you look at this, here is a masterstroke to end World War II and win a big victory. So, all right, where we stopped last week, we've fought in Normandy and Brittany, we've liberated Paris, we've chased the Germans over to this red dotted line. That's where their defenses began to stiffen. This red line is the Siegfried line. This is where all of their defenses are. Arnhem is right here on the top of the map, right by this Walter Model sign. If they cross at Arnhem, they're over the Rhine, and it's a straight shot running down here to Berlin. All of this red are German defenses. Montgomery's simply saying, why fight them if we don't have to? We'll just go around them, we'll pop through. There is nothing to stop us from capturing Berlin. And so Eisenhower looks at it. Everyone is going like, this really is not going to work. But he said, if it did, it'd be like winning that 1.5 billion lottery. If we hit it, if there's one chance, why not go for it? The worst that can happen is we get stuck. It's not going to be a complete and total disaster, Eisenhower writes in his diary. This can't be that bad. All right. So, Patton, when he looks at the plan, he starts laughing. He actually thinks it's a joke. He said, if Montgomery came in teetotaling drunk, I would not be as shocked as I am with this. This is completely opposite Montgomery's behavior. He's an inchworm. He moves 20 miles, moves up his infantry, his tanks, his medical supplies, his cooks, his, dry cleaners, and then he moves another 20 miles and moves everybody up. Sometimes you just gotta go. You just gotta go hard, and Montgomery won't do that. Second in command of the Allied Army, Arthur Tedder, says, this plan relies on her sacred majesty of chance. There's no way this is going to work. Nobody thinks it will work. Monty's convinced it will, and Eisenhower holds everybody at bay and says, well, let's just say that luck holds out. Can this work? Well, yeah, but everything has got to happen perfectly. You know this better than anybody, Ike. It never happens perfectly. Well, doesn't matter. The die is cast. So what's going to happen is that 82nd is going to land, and everybody has 3 bridges to capture. 101st has 3 bridges, 82nd has 3 bridges, and the British 1st Airborne has 2. And you have in the Netherlands big rivers like the Wal River, the Maas River, the Rhine River, the Saône River, but a bunch of tiny little canals. And the problem is the only road suitable for armor is one straight shot that crosses at least 8 rivers. And the road is about 8 feet up off the ground, surrounded by flat farmland. It's today a 1-lane road. I mean, it's not, but it is. When you pass somebody, you kind of like crunch and be happy that it's a rental car and not yours, because if you knock each other's mirrors off, you just keep going and nobody cares. But if the Germans ever get off to the side in these fields, it'll be like shooting ducks in a shooting gallery. They can't miss. So the whole thing is dictated by speed. The airborne soldiers have to hit, they've got to get to their landing zones, and they've got to capture all of these bridges before they explode. If they don't, the whole thing is a wash. If just one thing goes wrong, you can't take 23,000 vehicles and do a 3-point turn on a Dutch dirt road and get out of there. So once the tanks start, they cannot stop. And so here's our good friend Montgomery. This is Frederick Browning, and this is Brian Horrocks. And all three of them, especially Horrocks and Horrocks and Browning, say, you know, we're putting a lot on the line. Should we say something? And they both have an agreement. Well, no matter what we say, Monty will just fire us and replace us. If this thing is going to go, we've got the best chance of making it happen. So, problems. People point out very quickly. The leader of the Polish Airborne is a guy named Stanislaw Sosabowski. And he had a big joke. The big Polish joke, he's like, even though I'm a Pole, a few people consider me to be intelligent. He would laugh and chuckle. And he would say, what are our reserves? Where's our strategic reserves? If something goes wrong, we are way open and committed. What happens if we need backup? Well, you don't have any. Don't worry, you're not going to need backup because this is going to work. Okay, all right. Paratroopers have got to capture 8 bridges. 8 bridges with split-second timing. And the paratroopers, when asked, well, the best way to capture a bridge is to attack it from both ends at once. You don't want to start at one end and have to fight through to the enemy. The Guards Armored Division can't stop. They've got to go across this low-lying terrain without stopping. Montgomery, and this is where it's kind of those shady things happen. He knows in Arnhem there are 2 panzer divisions. But when asked what the defenses are, he says, well, there's only one, and they're made up of old men and boys. Now, there was a guy, an Oxford graduate, an engineer, named John Fuller. And John was kind of a nervous, guy. He was intelligence, and he got excited about everything. So it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. But he was really good at piecing together Dutch underground intelligence and confirming it with British photography. He orders a photo run where he finds in Arnhem Field Marshal Walter Model and 2 panzer divisions, not 1, but 2. When he shows them to Browning, Browning takes them to Montgomery, and Montgomery says, well, how do we know those aren't the guys who've always been there? Well, because that is Field Marshal Model's standard. That's a brand new troop. Montgomery says you're mistaken. He has a British doctor declare Fuller as being stressed out, combat fatigue, he told it, and pulled off the line. Fuller screaming and yelling, going, no, 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 there's 2 panzer divisions, not 1, and he's made to look like he's crazy. So he's pulled us, and if you want to keep your commission, if you don't want to go to jail, you will go to a quiet rest area. We're going to medicate you and let you sleep for a couple weeks, and then put you back in line. Later, Fuller will actually be sent to an asylum because he goes literally berserk after what happened. So Montgomery kind of breaks him. Also, training in Arnhem is the 1st Fallschirmjäger unit. They're under a guy named Heinz Gudrun. Heinz Gudrun is the father of the German paratrooper services. All right, so it's paratrooper on paratrooper. Also up there is Kurt Student. And Student is the guy who brought all parts of the German army together and combined it with what he called the Blitzkrieg. So we have 3 primetime players waiting in Arnhem when they're told there's only 1 unit there. Many people say we're stretching our capabilities too far. It's only 63 miles, but we simply just can't do this. When Omar Bradley learns this, he telephones Eisenhower, and Bradley is one of those guys that he just doesn't make waves. He's a steady, reliable old soldier. So he doesn't say anything unless he really needs to. And he's one of those guys you kind of want to listen to. And so he calls Eisenhower and says, look, Monty is going to leave us holding the bag. Something's going to go wrong. Monty's going to blame it on us. Don't stop the combined offensive. Montgomery in the north, me in the middle, George in the south. Let's just keep going. Let's not stop here. And so Eisenhower says, deal with it. This is a famous bridge in Nijmegen. It is halfway, it is the last bridge the 82nd Airborne has to get. It is really big. It sits on a curve in the river. The Germans are on this side. We are going to be on this side of the river. And to put in perspective, these are the tanks. You can see they're spaced out, but they're racing here over one of the rivers. This is in the city of Eindhoven. So this is pretty much the terrain they're going through. It's flat, wide open, and these aren't small bridges. These aren't like 25, 30-foot bridges. They're big industrial railroad river-spanning bridges. They're not small. So the date picked to jump is Sunday, September 17th. Now, September 17th for a fat old history teacher is a pretty neat day. It's the day the Constitution was signed. It's the day the NFL was officially founded. It's my daughter Hannah's birthday. It is the anniversary of Antietam in the Civil War. So all these big time things happen on September 17th. Well, this drop is amazing. It's 35,000 paratroopers. It's bigger even than D-Day. It's enormous. They're all going to drop into the Netherlands. And quickly the paratroopers realize, well, wait a minute. How many guys are going? 35,000? Well, where are we going to get the planes for all of that? Well, fellas, look, you're all going to jump, but not all at once. It's going to take 3 flights, 3 round trips to get every paratrooper on the ground. Well, wait a minute. If I'm in the 101st, I'm landing first. I'm going to be on the ground all by myself until the planes fly back to France, load up with the second wave, and bring them forward. Is that correct? Well, wait for the ice to drop. Drop the ice. Come on, crescendo. Bam. Yes. So, how many flights is it going to take for us? Well, we'll probably get 2 on the first day and 1 on the second day. Whoa, wait a minute. You said this whole thing depended upon split-second timing. Now it's going to take 3 flights over 2 days to get us all there? Do you realize we cannot stop a tank with an M1? My M1 versus a Tiger is no contest. Oh, don't worry, guys. Speed and surprise. Just capture those bridges. That's what you airborne guys do. Huh? Okay. So they're going to be on the ground with absolutely no support. Well, Sunday was a magical day. They said the planes took off, and as the vibrations began to hit over England and France and Belgium, people were at church, and church services stopped, and everybody went outside and was like, holy cow. You can't see the sun. It was a beautiful sunny Sunday morning, and church bells began to ring. From England to France to Belgium, as far away as Norway, people felt the end of the war was at hand. And then some other problems are revealed. Again, the paratroopers say the best way to take a bridge is both ends at once. On a close examination, because remember, there was only 6 or 7 days to get everything together, all the landing zones for the paratroopers were on the south side of all the bridges. Not half on the south, half on the north, but everybody on the south. They go, well, why is that? Well, the fields are wider. You might land in town. Well, can't we land a little like outside of town and, a half a mile or a mile and run to the bridge? Oh, no. Speed and surprise. Land on the south side of the bridge. They go, well, wait a minute. If I land on the south side and the 82nd is up ahead, won't they be on the north side of some of our bridges? Why don't we have like combined attacks? No. It's too confusing. Each unit handles its own bridges. All right, whatever. So, 101st Airborne, led by Maxwell Taylor, will get 3 bridges from the big city of Eindhoven to the little town of Vegel. It's 3 bridges. 82nd will get from the town of Graves to Nijmegen or Nijmegen. And the Nijmegen Bridge is the biggest bridge in the whole fleet. British Airborne will capture the last 2 bridges at Arnhem. And that is what they say. The British Airborne is going to get it because the Arnhem is the key bridge, but they're the original airborne unit. We're going to let them get it. And Montgomery says, I'm putting my guys the farthest away from help. So they are taking the biggest risk. So, all right. Here is Maxwell Taylor, good-looking guy, but not quite good-looking as this young pup here. General Jin Gavin was the youngest general in the United States Army. He's a general at 37. The jump, all the paratroopers say, was the most gorgeous jump they had, even going back to training in the States. Beautiful, warm, sunny day. You could see forever. They jump out. They land on the soft green fields of the Netherlands, and nobody was shooting at them this time. Last time they jumped out of planes was D-Day. There's a bunch of cows right there. And they're walking through the countryside. You can see guys walking high up on the brush, and there's another medic, he's hard to see, down here. They're up on one of the raised beds. The whole dam and dike network, I mean the Netherlands, 1/3 of it's underwater. So everything is raised up off the ground. The guy said it was a beautiful, beautiful jump, except for Jim Gavin. Jim Gavin lands awkwardly on some rocks, and God, my back hurts. And he goes to a medic who says, oh, nothing, you just got a bruise on your back. Well, Jim Gavin finds out after the operation is done, he broke 2 vertebrae in his back, and he would forever kind of walk a little cockeyed because he broke his back, but still completes the mission. So, leader of the All-American Division. So this is what we got, kind of a modern-day picture. If you got into a car and you drove from Eindhoven to Arnhem, you could do it, unless you were rubbernecking and stuff, you could do it in less than an hour. But there's kind of neat stuff to see along the way. But here it is, this straight road. This yellow line is the distance. You've got Eindhoven here, which is 49 miles from Arnhem, and you've got Nijmegen, which is about 29. It's 20 miles in between, and this area will become known as Hell's Highway. So if you can remember, those of us who are old enough, back to the first Persian Gulf invasion when the Republican Guard were caught out on the road and were obliterated, well, that is exactly what is going to happen here. On either side, you have these wide open fields. It's like driving across like I-80 through Iowa and having your vehicle up 8 feet suspended from like a sunflower or cornfield and saying, shoot as many of them as you can. This is where all the trouble is going to start between the 2 towns right here. So, 101st lands, greatest jump that they had ever seen. And while they get the first 2 of their bridges captured, it is a bridge over the Wilhelmina Canal that, as the 506th Airborne comes up on it, it blows up. It blows up in their face. Now, it's not a super big bridge, but it's very important. And here's where the intangibles, the variables, begin to go wrong. In the American tank columns, going over rivers, we always carried boats. And this will cause a big fight later on between a guy named Julian Cook and the Guards Armored Division. The British said, well, we don't need boats because we're going to drive across bridges. Well, yeah, if the bridges aren't there, we need boats to get across. They go, well, all of our tanks have bridging equipment on them. Very easily put together pontoon bridges, pretty much invented in 1940 by Erwin Rommel. Well, as the Guards Armor takes off, the 506 needs the bridging material. The problem is The bridging material is trapped all the way in the back of the British column. And just as the British get underway, they were walked out by artillery firing over their heads, and as soon as they got out of artillery range, there was a small group of Germans who began to counterattack. They were hiding under a hill in the woods, and their 88 millimeter cannons take out the first 3 German or British tanks. A bulldozer is brought forward to shove them off the road, and it is taken out. So there's a log jam right away. The Germans are not dislodged until P-47 Thunderbolts blast them out of the little gully that they were hiding in, and about 30 or 40 guys surrender. But the Guards Armored has to stop and figure out what to do with German prisoners who surrender. We can't just leave them. And no one thought of, well, let's have a group to round up prisoners and take them back. So barely do they get started, and they're 4 hours behind schedule. Then they get to the city of Eindhoven. Eindhoven is about the size of Chapel Hill. So imagine Chapel Hill has been under German occupation for 5 years. All of a sudden, on a beautiful late fall Sunday morning, thousands of American paratroopers roll into town and say, are there any Nazis around here? Sprechen Sie Deutsch? And get my little pamphlet out and read it. No, they're all gone. And the people who've been under this German thumb, they got a party. And they start having a good time and pulling out wine and jelly and ham and cheese. And the paratroopers are trying to get through, and then the Guards Armored shows up. And forgive me here, but if I'm 18 years old and I'm driving my tank through a town and about 8 giant blonde girls jump up on it and say, hey, can I give you a kiss? I'm probably, no offense, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop probably, all right? Finish the job, but and they literally can't get through the streets because they're so crammed with people. Well, the 506 is trying to get through there to get the bridging material, and they can't because the people are so jubilant. Then they see things that they don't know how to handle. The Dutch resistance was really good. It was every bit as good as the famous Maquis in France, but they lived in a more condensed area. So their lives are even more at risk, and the Dutch resistance goes and they begin to round up collaborators. And as the GIs and the Guards Armored are rolling through town, they're lining up Dutch collaborators and shooting them. Boom, 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 boom. Even more disturbing, if you're a guy of the 1940s or even any time, women are being drug out of their houses and their dresses are being torn off of them, and they would take sheep shears and shave their hair off their head. They were women who either shacked up with Nazis or had children with Nazi officers, so they and their children were kicked, ostracized out of town. Well, you're a young man and you see a woman getting knocked around and her dress ripped off and her hair cut, and you're like, well, we just can't let that happen. But the officers were like, nope, it's a Dutch problem, just keep moving forward. So you have all these shocking sights, from a beautiful sunny day to guys getting shot on a wall, woman getting her hair cut off, and we still need to get our bridging material built. So by the time the Guards Armored Division finally gets through Eindhoven and the 506 gets the bridging material, they're 24 hours. They're already a day behind schedule. Now, the last bridge, the Weigel Bridge, the 101st Airborne captured, but when the Guards Armored Division gets there, it's, early evening, not quite dusk, and they stop. And Maxwell Taylor's like, what are you guys waiting for? Well, it's going to be dark. And get across the bridge. Those are your guys up there. No. We'll wait until daylight to see what's on the other side. I'll tell you what's on the other side, the 82nd Airborne. You can see them right there. Get your butt over the bridge. But Brian Horrocks says no. He orders his men out of their tanks. They move into the soft fields, and they start brewing tea and they go to bed for the night so they're not on their equipment in case the Luftwaffe comes by. And the 82nd, like, what are you doing? They go, give me a tank. Show me how to drive the thing. It can't be that hard. It's got to go straight, right? And so more time is lost near Wegel. So 30th Corps doesn't cross. They're now, because of Eindhoven, the bridge being built, their night out in the soft green fields of the Netherlands, they're 36 hours behind schedule already. And they really haven't encountered a big problem. And this brings us to where General Jin Gavin captures the town, the Graves Bridge. But they fail to get the Nijmegen Bridge. And that is because as soon as the British Airborne started to land, Walter Model pulled out of his headquarters called the Harsfield Hotel, and he retreats back into Germany. And he turns to his two panzer divisions, the 9th and the 10th Panzer. He says, 9th, you overrun the British drop zones. Find these paratroopers and kill them. 10th Panzer, SS, led by a commander who had fought on the Eastern Front, you go to Nijmegen and nothing gets across that bridge. I don't care if you and all of your men die, nobody gets across the Nijmegen Bridge. And everyone says, well, why don't we just blow up the Nijmegen Bridge? I mean, if we're worried about it, let's blow the thing up. Model says, no, we're going to need it for our counterattack. Heck with the counterattack, let's just blow it up. Also, the planners, how they don't notice this, asked last week how we didn't know about the hedgerows. 400 yards from the Nijmegen road bridge is a railroad bridge across the same river. It's not quite as big, but it's a parallel bridge. If you got to get one bridge, you might as well get both of them. But they leave out the railroad bridge entirely. And Jin Gavin is beside himself when he's told parallel due south of the town is this little knoll called Groesbeek Hill. And on the other side of Groesbeek was a Dutch mental hospital, who all the patients escape and start running around. And he was told to, instead of going straight into Nijmegen and capturing the town, to take his forces and get on Groesbeek Hill. It is the high ground that you can see for miles around in case the Germans try and flank us. And Gavin says, well, what good is the hill if I get into Nijmegen and I capture Nijmegen? There's nowhere for the Germans to sweep around us. Let me get the city, we'll get other guys to land in Groesbeek. But Browning and Montgomery said no. Because 82nd troopers were parachuted around Groesbeek, it took time. The time it took to fly them out to Groesbeek added so much flight time that the third wave of paratroopers couldn't come in until the next day. It turns out that Groesbeek matters absolutely not. But Monty wanted that high ground. So as it takes time, as I said, the paratroopers have to do that third flight. 82nd on September 19th, probes, they send scouts into Nijmegen, it's open. They're going, come on, come on, come on. But this is that time, if you put it all together, that Horrocks is back in Wegel, so no, we're gonna bed down for the night. We're just gonna take it easy. And so during that time, the 10th Panzer shows up. The 10th Panzer are the tanks. The 2nd SS Panzer are the infantry. They move into town. These are veteran violent soldiers. They are led by a guy named Wilhelm Bittrich. And this is where it's kind of comical. Bittrich was down south fighting against Patton. He was brought over from the Eastern Front fighting the Russians. He was brought over to reinforce the Siegfried Line. And him and Walter Model are having dinner. And the way that it's told later on, they were pretty much half in the bag drunk. And they were playing war games. And they were guessing who's going to lead the attack. And the two names always came back to Monty and Patton. And Modal, who by this time was completely drunk, starts laughing and says, it's going to be Montgomery. And Bittridge says, well, that would be great. I hope it is Monty, because he'll screw it up and we'll kill him. But if they're smart, the only guy who does anything is Patton. Modal says, you're right, of course it's going to be Patton. What do you need? And Bittridge says, well, my guys have been fighting on the Eastern Front. We stopped our battle and we rushed over here. We're a little tired. Any chance you could give us like 4 or 5 days off to rest, recoup, fix our machines, clean our guns, and get ready to go one-on-one with Patton? And Modal goes, yeah, it's great. Because I'm going up this place called Arnhem, this quiet little sector by the Netherlands. You want to come with me? We'll have another dinner and get drunk again. Bittridge is like, yeah, awesome. So Bittridge wasn't even supposed to be there. He gets drunk with his commander and he goes to Arnhem. These veteran seasoned combat troops are put in the worst possible place for the Allied attack. It is this group that John Fuller spotted in his flyover when he started rocking the boat and making too many questions. He was removed. He knew they were there. Montgomery knows they're there, but nobody else does. So Bittridge and his men are there. So here you go. This is the bridge that is blowing up outside of Eindhoven. It's fixed 48 miles from Arnhem, and off goes the Guards Armored Division. They cross the Grave River Bridge. Here is Grosbeek, way over here, south and east of Nijmegen. It is this flat, wide open area again that is Hell's Highway. This is as far as the Guards Armored Division is going to get. When they get into Nijmegen, the whole thing begins to go wrong. Here is the bridge that we are supposed to capture. This is where the Guards Armored Division is going to go. Here is the railway bridge that was missed by intelligence. The 82nd Airborne lands south and you would say north of where they're supposed to go. So they got to land next to the water, come down the road, and they are already thinking this is the bridge they're supposed to take, and they realize it's not, and there are already German defenders on the south side of the bridge. So they have to arc down to go even farther where the Germans are waiting for them. They try a frontal assault across the bridge, and they get machine gunned. They can't make it. Tanks drive up. And it was the saying, my M1 is pretty useless against a Panther or a Tiger. So boats are supposed to be brought forward. Problem is the British don't bring boats. We got to find boats. And they find little canvas canoes that have these like thin metal ribs, and they're folded up. You pull up a side of the boat and slide this metal rib down into a pole in the bottom. So it's like a skeleton with like a tarp wrapped around it. I don't know if I would get in one in like, the pond over at Anderson Park, let alone like a big river. Also, just to add difficulty, why bring paddles? We could have those, but that would be too easy. So guys are told to paddle with the butts of their rifles. And the guy chosen to lead this is a guy named Julian Cook, who was the captain of the West Point swim team. And they go, Julian, do you think you can get your guys across the water? He goes, well, how many guys do I have to get it? They said, well, I know about 300. He goes, if I take 300 guys across that river, that wide, with that current, without even the Germans shooting at us, we're looking at 50% losses. Like about 150 of us will get over. And Brian Horick says, great, pick your 300, let's go. Some smaller tanks come forward and they fire over the river. They fire smoke shells. You guys get in your boats and go really fast. We'll fire smoke and you get over there, and that way you can attack the other end of both bridges. Well, the guys start rowing, and the Germans had seen what's going on because as luck would have it during Market Garden, a strong wind comes off the North Sea and blows the smoke away. So the tankers are trying to continue firing, but for about 5 or 6 minutes, the guys in the boats are in the middle of the river wide open, and the Germans start machine gunning everybody. About 60% somehow make it to the other side. And Cook will later say that even if he died, there's no way he could have stopped his men. So their blood was whipped into such a savage frenzy, seeing their friends getting machine gunned. He goes, they attacked up that beach with speed I didn't know we had. He goes, they didn't shoot the German assailants, they bayoneted them on the run and just kept moving. They capture the Nijmegen Bridge. When he's all said and done, when it's all over, Julian Cook will take 300 men into the river. When the bridges are captured, there are 35 men left standing. And he captures the bridge. And once again, it's dusk. And as the column starts across the bridge, they stop about 18 miles from Arnhem. And he's going, what are you guys doing? Well, we hear things are bad up at the front. Well, yeah, we can hear the fighting. Let us hop on your tanks and we'll go with you. All 35 of us. We can't, mate. We have our orders. And Cook goes, damn you British. Don't you get it? Your men are fighting and dying. Let's go. And one of the tank commanders says something smart, and Julian just hauls off and decks him, and a small brawl breaks out between the German tankers and the 35 infantrymen left of the 82nd Airborne. They're so disgusted, Cook and his men just walk away. Now, the subject comes up later, but no disciplinary action is taken because the tankers don't want anybody to know how close they were to their friends, and they actually got into a fight with their American allies saying, go get your brothers up there. If you can't do it, let us go. But that's as far as the tanks make it. Oops, this is what I just told you. I also forgot this. In the middle of all this, when it was revealed no officer was allowed to take any plans referring to Market Garden out of their top secret conference rooms. Well, a German scouting around some gliders that had crashed finds an entire map packet called Operation Market Garden. He's like, you're absolutely kidding me, and he takes it to Model. And Model says, this is a joke, it's a ruse. And they're like, well, actually, no, if you look at map 1, that's where the 101st is. You look at map 2, that's where the 82nd is. This is really what they're doing. So our plans fell right into German hands. And if things aren't going bad enough yet, it gets even better. The British 1st Airborne. These are the guys I really feel bad for. They're under Robert Urquhart. I think in the movie, I think this is Sean Connery's character, if I'm not mistaken. They wanted to drop right next to this flat plain next to the river. No, we can't do that. Well, why can't we do that? Well, we're going to use that to drop your supplies. Well, what in God's name am I going to need supplies for if I capture the river? Well, it's going to have gasoline and tank ammunition for our tankers going over the bridge. He goes, well, here, what's